So she's a researcher at the CNRS, and she studied history of science. She's also, I need some light to it, an intersection of many fields, as many of the people that are going to be into this symposium. History of science, research, theater, as a place of experimentation, art, science, politics, and she has developed a long collaboration with Bruno Latour, and with whom she designed Le Théâtre des Négociations. And she is about to start a residency in Marfa, Texas, about, guess what, Imaginaries of space. So I think I'm going to leave her the floor, and she's very brave because she doesn't feel super good today. So she is very brave to be with us.
Ça marche. Thank you so much, Annick. I must say, first of all, that I'm very moved to talk after such a performance. And I had prepared lots of pages, but I think I will do something else. Because it's very hard to speak after theater. I mean, in a way, I don't want to speak now. I just want to like you, I guess. So I'm sorry to interrupt the imagination and Imaginaries we just had. But it's a wonderful starting point to start with this emotion of a special live moment on stage about different space Imaginaries. So thank you so much for the whole team who gave us that. I was not prepared for that. I didn't realize we would have a real theatrical moment. The reason why I would like to start with that is what we just saw, and all the content of my pages will be in my comments, in a way, of what we have seen. What we just saw, for me, shows to what extent there is a very interesting link between stage and space. And why do we need and why do we use art, artifact, objects, performances to talk about space? I think this is a very fascinating topic. I mean, a topic that I've been studying for a long time. Just let me give you some context. So I'm a historian of science, and I was very interested in the history of astronomy and imagination of space throughout history, first of all. And that was the first book called Fiction of the Cosmos, a long time ago. And I just want to say a little bit of this trajectory I made. I was fascinated by space and by the origin of our classical Western imaginaries of space. How have we built this idea of narrative to space? How have we built the idea of conquest of stars? How have we built the idea of traveling to space? And this really starts, as we know, in antiquity, but then there is something special, of course, in the 17th century. So the basis of my research was really this 17th century moment of cosmographical revolution, as you all know here, and also the beginning of a certain kind of space imagination, linked to discovery and to, in a way, exploration, but also exploitation, and also conquest, and also, the whole imagination that Annick was telling you about at the beginning. And what happened next is that I met Bruno Latour, and we started to work on Earth. So there was this kind of, going back from the stars back to Earth, so to speak, as Bruno Latour says, back to Earth, down to Earth. But the reason why I would like to share with you another project today is that when we went back to Earth with this thing called the Terrestrial Trilogy, which is Inside and Moving Earth and Viral, it was really the idea of how do we rethink the Earth. And the reason why I wanted to share with you that today is that in order to rethink the Earth, we also have to rethink space. And this parallelism, or how can we call it? Not parallelism, but this kind of mirror effect between the Earth and space is, as you all know here, one of the striking, recurring features of our space imagination. The way we see space tells a lot about our cosmologies, our way of inhabiting the Earth, our politics, and our ideologies, basically. So I've always been fascinated, as a historian of science, first of all, by this mirror effect. As you know, there has been so much of politics projected on space, so much of power. The Pope represented themselves in the stars, the kings, of course. So this mirror effect is something that is very striking for us now. It works very well when you want to study 16th and 17th century celestial imagination, but it works today as well. And this is something we have tried to explore with Bruno. And one thing I find quite fascinating, I don't know if you're familiar a little bit with his work, and when he writes, for instance, Où atterrir, ou même face à Gaia, facing Gaia, where to land, he always uses some kind of very astronomical pictures. So again, there is something to be said about why do we use space and astronomical images to talk about the Earth. And now to the point. So we first did this first project called Ensad, where we tried to rethink the way we imagine the Earth and how do we go from the globe to the critical zone. That was the first idea, very geological. Then we did the second one called Moving Earth, that was based very much on the work of Lovelock and Margulis. As you know, Lynn Margulis, she's the one who is projected behind Bruno on the big screen. And then we tried to do the third one called Viral, and Diane Lin just here is part of the project. Again, you're everywhere. And Viral is tries to tackle exactly our topic today. How do we escape our classical space imaginaries based on, again, exploration, conquest, rocket? How do we change that? And the reason why we wanted to tackle that problem was in a way to go deeper in the Earth problem, if you see what I mean. In order to go deeper in Earth, we needed to address, and we did not resolve it at all, but we had to address the question of space imagination. And Viral was a very difficult thing to do. It was in the middle of the pandemic, as the title shows, and as all the theater people, we had to work our way through that. But it was also very difficult for me because I didn't know how to grasp this space imagination. I didn't know how to represent it. And finally, and I don't know if I have all the images on here, but I'm not sure. I have a few images. Not many. My Instagram should be better than that, but I will show you a few things. Basically, what we tried to do in Viral was to, in a way, deconstruct the space imagination, the Western space imagination. And the way we did it was not by going in through this beautiful, other ways of doing that on Earth in other countries, as we just saw now. It was by trying to, in a way, break the old images, and the way we finally did it, because that was what I show you here is the first attempt at doing Viral. What we finally did was to put on stage a kind of exhibition of our iconic images of space. So there was, of course, some beautiful images of Mars, because in 21, as you remember, and 2021, it was the big moment of Mars exploration. So we had beautiful images on Mars, we had beautiful images on the surfaces of planets, all the typical images of space that we have. But we made it in the mise en scène into a very old-fashioned exhibition. And at some point in the show, these old-fashioned pictures, they disappear, and we try to enter space in a different way through music and through viruses. And that was a bit of the crazy idea of, in order to grasp space, let's go back into the tiny, tiny, tiny things of viruses. And again, I wanted to make the link with what we just saw now, because I'm very interested in the way in which we need small things in order to represent big things. And that's another recurring aspect, feature of space imaginaries. And as you know, this is linked very much to analogism, analogism, the idea that the micro and the micro, macro are linked. And what I like very much with this setting, very simple setting of theater, is that it's one of the simple and powerful devices through which we can do what I like to call cosmograms. We try to do small world in order to represent the big world. And I'm very curious and very fascinated by the fact that there is so much going on stage in performance about this renewal of imagination. So this is just our way of trying to do that. But again, I think it's part of a large wave of attempt at rethinking space through little objects, little performances, cosmograms, yes, these kind of things. I don't want to take too much time, so I just tell you now about the second project, which is this residency that Annick just said a few words about. And again, it's a way to share with you my questions rather than my answers. This residency will happen in Texas from the 5th of October, so in 2 weeks. And for 1 month, there will be 4 artists and researchers in the middle of nowhere, because Marfa really is in the middle of nowhere, in the desert. And I don't know yet what will happen, of course. I was asked by the French embassy in America to organize this residency, probably because of the history of science connection with space. And the idea is I think very, very beautiful. I mean, their invitation was very, very interesting. They said, look, there is a link between this Texan desert and our space imagination. And again, this is this mirror effect that I'm really interested in, and I told you about at the beginning. Why is the Texan desert so interesting? Well, it's the place where, as you know, agriculture was extremely violent at the beginning of the 20th century. It's where happened the Dust Bowl, this terrible kind of Anthropocene-like tempest that created terrible tempest. So the Dust Bowl, the desert, exploitation of the soil, but also the first big observatories that were organized, that were settled there. And then the NASA, of course, has put its... sorry, I just take my notes because I don't want to say wrong details. Yeah, the McDonald Observatory, I wanted to find the name. And it's also where the Apollo project and the ISS were launched, and it's also the same Texas desert where SpaceX is settled, in Boca Chica Reserve. So there is, in one single space on Earth, this concentration of a certain type of space imaginary and a certain type of Earth exploitation. And again, I think this link is really something we can work with. Why is it, in a way, in the same? Well, we know why. It's the same move to explore space in a certain way and to exploit the Earth in a certain way. Again, I don't know what the artists and researchers we have invited will create there, but I'm really interested in this possibility of rethinking space in relation to the ecological crisis. For me, it's really completely at the heart. Yeah, I think that's the main things I wanted to share with you today. Thank you.